I know what's gone on previously in my previous prison sentences. I wrote a letter to my wife, and it was a detailing letter.
Right, this is your letter to your wife from prison. What did you say to make sure they understood why I do what I do? It's me believing that the worst will come, that you will die in jail. The worst will come, and I want my children to know that I haven't. Yeah, 2025, but I'm entering my 3rd month of solitary confinement within Woodhill Prison. After 42 days, they had to go to the government. After 42 days of isolation, so whose decision is it? Because I know people get frustrated with the prison. It's not the prison, all decisions to do with me and to do with the jail, they're coming from the government. That was made. I had to give a written response to my opinion on my isolation. After 42 days, it was going to the government for them to continue doing it. So I wrote my written response. Who said this doesn't have to happen? When I came in here, I sat down with a psychiatrist, and I said to her, what's 9 months of solitary confinement going to do to me? She said, it's going to be devastating for your mental health. So I said, so why are they doing it? 2 weeks this week, I sat down. Every 2 weeks, I have a meeting with the governors, and the mental health team is there. Psychiatrists are there. Mental health probation, independent monitoring board, they're all there every 2 weeks because I have to have it, because I'm in solitary confinement. This week, I said, I'm going to say this because I feel different. I'm telling you, I know how I feel. I feel different. I know I'm only 2 months in, so why am I still being held in solitary confinement? Yeah, I mean, in the news now, with these, parties, the government, the people in charge were breaking the rules, having these parties in their lovely gardens. I think I've been naive all my life. It's not till now I just go, why do we trust them? Of course, we shouldn't trust the people in charge. That's how they're in charge. They shouldn't be trusted. From prison, Tommy Robinson is stirring controversy again, this time targeting karma. The latest twist, Ricky Gervais has joined the conversation. Those that are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible, they're not interested in victims. They're interested in themselves. Those who are cheerleading Tommy Robinson are not interested in justice. They're supporting a man who went to prison for nearly collapsing a gang grooming case. These people are trying to get some kind of vicarious thrill from street violence that people like Tommy Robinson promote. And those attacking Jess Phillips, who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend, not for protecting victims. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more than they've even dreamed about when it comes to protecting victims of sexual abuse throughout her entire career. And so, just as I took on the criminal justice system and the institutions when I was chief prosecutor, I'm prepared to call this out for what it is. We've seen this playbook many times. Tommy Robinson launched a sharp critique of Keir Starmer, challenging the Labour leader's carefully crafted image. If his claims hold any truth, Starmer's credibility could be at risk. And that's not even half of it. At this point, I know what they're going to do here, what I believe they're going to do. And that, I know no one can tell me why else I was brought to that prison. No one can tell me. So I know, intentionally and previously, I've been locked in rooms with Muslims in prison. So I believe that, and then, in that first week in the block, Robinson's accusations targeted Starmer's political record, claiming he ignores working-class concerns, particularly on immigration and cultural integration. He portrayed Starmer as out of touch, more focused on maintaining the status quo than driving real change. Told I'm getting moved, and I said to my wife, I'm getting moved. But nothing from the outcry outside, from Lord Pearson, who's a lawmaker in the UK, making comments to make sure I'm safe. I knew that nothing had been done to do that. I see you're sat down writing your letter to your wife and your children. And what are you telling them? That I know, by doing what I do, that moment will come, and I know that. And I've chosen that. And you want your children to know that you didn't choose it over them. So I detail to my wife that it's not about them. It's not about our children. It's about every child, everyone's. I'm not apologizing because not for 1 minute am I sorry for what I've done. I'm apologizing for what it's cost. Robinson also criticized Starmer's foreign policy, financial decisions, and what he called a history of broken promises dating back to his time as Director of Public Prosecutions. Why am I not in a DeKalb prison? And there's a mental health team now. I said, let me just ask you, is this good for me? She said no. I said, how bad is it? Because I know how bad it is. I remember what happened last time. So I said, so why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? And I'm a civil offender. So I got 18 months, which is insane anyway, for playing a film. The film that they said wasn't in the public's interest. Well, I think it's on 150 million views. It certainly was in the public's interest. Yeah, but they sentenced me to 18 months. Now, as a civil offender, you go to an open prison. What's the difference between that and how I'm being held? In an open prison, you get a job outside. You have a car. You go to work. You stay at home 5 days a month. You have town visits with your family. That is the only prison you go to for committing civil offenses. Yet I'm shipped to a maximum security jail, housed with the worst Muslim gangs and jihadists in the country. And then they use that to say I have to go on solitary confinement. And what is solitary confinement? Well, rapists and terrorists are not on solitary confinement. Jaden Axel did his little stabbing spree, the Muslim lad. I was in Belmarsh with him. He was 2 cells above me in healthcare. He's got a job. So they're not under solitary confinement. What day is it today? My routine tomorrow, Friday, half because people say, yeah, I've got the gym. Robinson claimed that when the state decides who counts as a journalist, that's communism. His accusation seemed designed to erode trust in Starmer. As his statement spread, social media exploded with outrage, skepticism, and calls for an investigation, keeping the controversy trending for days. I've watched silence. I'm in it. He has a go at me, which is fine because I was on Good Morning Britain at the time talking about this. Here's the problem. He repeats in the film a series of things that are lies. That's why he's been found in contempt of court, and that's why he's been put in prison. The reason we know he's lying is that he was sued by the Syrian refugee in a court. A judge, in a very lengthy verdict and conclusion, which I read in full, and I recommend, by the way, that you and everybody else watching this go away and take the time to read the full judgment from the judge, discredited all 5 of the witnesses that Robinson produced in court. The judge said they're not credible. He said a lot of them were making stuff up completely. The attempt by Robinson to portray the Syrian refugee boy as the villain, not the victim, left political commentators struggling to address claims from someone many had dismissed. Labour initially brushed off the controversy. But as it grew, Starmer was forced to respond. He appeared on multiple news programs disputing Robinson's allegations. But for many, the damage was done. Robinson's explosive claims had already planted doubt. Not the victim, that was a lie. The boy who was accused of bullying him was thrown out of the school because of his previous prior record. This incident, before it ever got made public, came through a viral video. So yeah, you people in America do look at Tommy Robinson very differently from how we do here. The reason Nigel Farage has disowned him and wants nothing to do with him is that we see through him. Tommy Robinson is a convicted football hooligan. He was also convicted of beating up a police officer leading a riot. He is somebody who's been guilty of mortgage fraud. He's been guilty of forging a passport to get into America because he couldn't travel due to his criminal record. He's been found in contempt of court twice for nearly wrecking trials of the grooming gangs, where he turned up and was saying defamatory things at the courtroom, which nearly led to the whole case being collapsed. And now he's been found in contempt again. With Gervais weighing in, the controversy exploded. His remarks went viral, sparking debates and adding to the fire. Unexpected scrutiny to Starmer's response, what began as a political dispute became a cultural moment beyond Labour or Robinson's control. Then, just as things seemed to settle, GES took it even further to court for repeating lies about the Syrian boy in this film. Silence, which has been viewed over 150 million times, shaped perspectives. I understand why people in America have a slightly warped view of Robinson, but I can tell you that is the reality. His next move wasn't just a passing joke, it was a direct challenge, one that sent shockwaves through both his fans and political circles alike. When people saw what he said next, it became impossible to ignore. What did JES reveal that turned this from a controversy into a full-blown crisis? When the poison of the far right leads to serious threats to Jess Phillips and others, in my book, a line has been crossed. I enjoy the cut and thrust of politics, the robust debate that we must have, but that's got to be based on facts and truth, not on lies, not on those who are so desperate for attention that they're prepared to debase themselves and their country. So, this government will get on with the job of protecting victims, including child sexual abuse, mandatory reporting, and accelerating the processes. But what I won't tolerate is this discussion and debate based on lies without calling it out. Before we move on, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you the stories that matter. Now, back to the video. Do you know how infuriating it is? And it wouldn't be, it's infuriating. Innocent people are getting stabbed and murdered, terrorist attack after terrorist attack that doesn't have to happen. Gervais quipped, if Tommy Robinson is your voice of reason, you've got bigger problems than just Starmer, taking shots at both sides. His humor underscored a deep issue, Starmer's disconnect with voters. With over 14 million Twitter followers, Gervais' message reached beyond political circles, sparking debates among those who rarely engaged in politics in a way that op-eds and news reports hadn't. He made British politics impossible to ignore. Murdered. Terrorist attack after terrorist attack. That doesn't have to happen. You just need to grow a pair of bollocks, sort them out, and stop being so. I'm going to burst a blood vessel, but Piers Morgan, you're a hypocrite. Every one of you news presenters sitting there, you're a hypocrite. You called me a racist and extremist. You'll be sitting there saying, I'm from the Islamic community. I'm disgusted. This is because of this. I was right for you to say it then. We were bigots and extremists. You successfully targeted us, slandered us, and silenced us. And everything we call out, we now watch as it plays out, and you do, all to stop it. The political establishment reacted with confusion and concern. Some MPs dismissed Gervais as just a comedian, unwittingly proving his point that those in power preferred to brush off criticism rather than address it. I don't think that Tommy Robinson is throwing anything either. I didn't say he was either. I said he was an extremist, but I didn't say he was throwing. Well, I disagree with you on that. The man that I was there with, in fact, not just one man, but the person I was referring to a moment ago, is Muslim. I'm sure if he were on the line with me right now, he would be putting you straight, saying that you're giving out the wrong message. Tommy Robinson is not an extremist. He says certain things that are truths. The reason why he's been convicted and sentenced to prison for 18 months today, your news bulletin is saying that he put out a repeated forage or something like that. Actually, it's the opposite. He's been put in prison for telling the truth. As the dust settled, one thing was clear, Gervais had shifted the conversation. What began as a fringe controversy had turned into a nationwide debate. But beyond the political fallout, his involvement raised a bigger question: how much influence should entertainers have in shaping political discourse? The far-right activist Tommy Robinson has been jailed for 18 months for contempt of court after admitting to repeating false allegations about a Syrian refugee. Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, continued to repeat the claims even after he was successfully sued for libel in 2021, including in a film that has been viewed millions of times. Handing down the sentence, the judge said Robinson's actions suggested he regards himself as above the law. Robinson's accusations and Gervais' commentary revealed a deeper issue: growing distrust in British politics. This was no longer just about Starmer or Labour but a broader frustration with a system seen as out of touch. Westminster's old guard now faces pressure not just from political opponents or media critics but from unexpected voices, comedians, cultural figures, and even prisoners. In an era where influence extends beyond Parliament and newsrooms, the battle for public trust is being fought in new arenas. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson, has pleaded guilty to contempt of court charges over his banned documentary Silenced. Robinson was arrested after screening the film at a Found Alga Square rally in July. The documentary was shown despite a court order banning its release following Robinson's libel loss to a Syrian refugee 3 years ago. Today, appearing in court, he admitted knowingly flouting the injunction multiple times. With potential penalties of up to 2 years in jail, a fine, or both, the hearing continues. How did it come to this, a comedian and a jailed activist resonating more with the public than elected leaders? The backlash isn't just about Robinson's claims or Java's jokes. It reflects a deeper demand for transparency, accountability, and leadership that truly represents ordinary people. With frustration at a boiling point, Westminster can't afford to ignore it any longer. Like and subscribe to our channel and watch more videos like this here.